Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Shane Hunter. I am the Abrasive Entrepreneur, and we today are going to discuss Facebook advertising. Recently, I did a little poll, questionnaire, asking my followers what exactly about Facebook advertising it is that they would like to learn. Got quite a few responses to that questionnaire. So the next few days, I am going to spend some time running through what my answers are for those questions. Now keep in mind that the answers that I provide you might not be the only answers, but they are the best possible answers at the time with the data given under my experiences and my situation, and for more specifically for what I see for you guys, for my paying customers and my students, and the most common problems that they have, for example. So one of the questions was actually from my very good friend Emily Mendez, who had asked, what are the KPIs, which are the key performance indicators, when you are doing Facebook advertising? Like, what do you look for? You know, because there's a lot of gurus that talk about important metrics such as click-through rate and your earnings per click, different things along those lines. Now, when I am doing any campaign, first off, it depends on what the campaign is. So say I'm doing a lead generation campaign, which is what I'm doing right now, currently. I have an ad running that is for my lead magnet that's on my main website, which if you just go to abrasiveads.com, you can go and check that out now, and you get a free 1-hour presentation on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Maslow's pyramid of needs, which is a Psych 101 concept that you learn about in Introduction to Psychology when you go to college, or even in high school now, they teach the same thing. And essentially what Abraham Maslow came up with a long time ago is that there is a triangle. And in this triangle, the form itself, the shape itself isn't necessarily important, other than it dictates the amount of people that need that particular need. And that's why it gets smaller as you go towards the top, because most people are struggling to even get the bottom needs met. It's actually a really, really good presentation. It's about an hour long, and it's one that I did a couple of years back. And in this presentation, it explains to you that once you understand how Maslow's hierarchy of needs actually works, you begin to understand how humans work. You begin to understand how influence works, and not necessarily in a direct way, but you start to see that every human has needs, and those needs are kind of a universal thing. They're not necessarily like an individual basis, like you have to worry about what everybody individually wants or needs. When you realize that it's broken down into these categories, you can start to make products and services that meet a market need. Now, those basic needs are essentially, it starts with physiological, it goes to safety, it then goes on to love and belonging, and then esteem, and then self-actualization. Go check out that lead magnet that I have if you haven't already. And again, that's at abrasiveads.com. Once you enter your email address, you'll be able to get that presentation. It gets sent to your email, so you do have to enter a legit email, otherwise you don't get it. Fair enough? But when I'm doing a lead generation campaign, like the one that I'm describing, where I'm sending people to that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the KPIs that I'm looking for, really, at the end of the day, are only cost per lead. So CPL is what that's called. And the reason being is because my targeting is so specific, and my ad copy is specific enough that I am able to weed out the wrong prospects just based on those two things alone. And I'm able to bring in the right kinds of prospects because of who I'm essentially aiming the ads at. I know that generally it's that group that I want to pull from when I'm generating my leads. So that's why my cost per lead is my most important KPI when dealing with Facebook advertising. Because at the end of the day, I want to bring in as many leads as possible for as low of a cost as possible. Now, there are other indicators, like your cost per click and, the number of people who actually stop and engage with the ad and all of that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, it's really just cost per lead that matters the most. And it's really just a numbers game. For example, the ad that I have running right now, that is, if you see it in your news feed, it will be Sigmund Freud, and he's sitting there looking all, debonair, as psychologists back in the day liked to do. And off in the corner, it's kind of like a thought bubble, but it's a Pornhub search bar that I pulled off of Google, and in that search bar, it just says mom. Now, if you've been in Psychology 101, you'll understand that joke and you'll understand that reference. Basically, Sigmund Freud was obsessed with his mother and had and studied what they call the Oedipus complex, which is essentially that you are in love with your mother and a lot of the motivations that you have in life are based off of that fact. Well, anyways, that's what the ad is. The ad is performing really, really well, and right now my cost per lead is hovering at about $1.45 per lead. Now, this is in internet marketing, which in that industry, when you're targeting that sort of crowd, is actually a really good price. A lot of marketers these days and Facebook ads experts are all complaining that you can't really get decent leads for under $10 per lead, which I've always thought is horseshit. A lot of my friends, like David Schloss and, Dottie Reynolds and other people who are very good at Facebook advertising, they don't pay anywhere near that amount. Neither do I. But $1.50 per lead is actually pretty damned excellent, especially when you consider my flagship product sells for $5,000. So for every $5,000 sale I make, really, at $1.50 a lead, I have a lot of room to make mistakes and to not sell to quite a few of those people and still be in the profit, which is the end of the game in entrepreneurialism and in having your own business. It all comes down to making money. So that's why that particular KPI is the most important to me, the cost per lead, because at the end of the day, if I can get that cost per lead low enough, I'll make money. It's a simple formula. It's mathematics, basic mathematics. Now, another one of the questions that I was hit up with was, how do you do your targeting, Shane, when you're setting up a new ad campaign? Anybody who's done advertising for any length of time will tell you that one of the most important things that you can master is your targeting capabilities. Now, Facebook has revolutionized the way that you can target. And I absolutely adore Facebook because of their targeting parameters within their advertising system. It's one of the absolute best in the world, if not the best in the world. Now, if you're just starting out, you don't have the luxury of having custom audiences and lookalike audiences and all of that sort of thing. So you have to start out with interest and behavior-based targeting, and as well as demographic targeting. Now, say for myself, who is in the internet marketing training niche, when you understand that the demographics of this industry are comprised of essentially your 25 to 45-year-old adult male who is typically conservative, you get a lot of clues just in that framework right there with who you should be targeting. Now, a lot of your targeting actually comes down to truly understanding your market and who makes up the lion's share of your market. But above and beyond that, you need to define your customer avatar, because you may have a slight variation or a vast variation of who it is that you like to work with and who it is that you want to target, because at the end of the day, it comes down to your enjoyability in business, your profitability in business. So you know the types of clients and the parameters that make up those types of clients. So it's up to you to really drill down and write down on a piece of paper and a pen exactly what those parameters are. So like I just said, in internet marketing, we know that they are 25 to 45-year-old males. Now, I specifically actually go a little bit younger. I go from 18 and I go to age 44, which is just before the 45-year-old cutoff. Now, I do that because that's where the lion's share of not only the market is, but if you look at the roster of my students, I have very, very, very few females, but I do have females and I love them to death, and they are actually some of my better students. But they're very minimal as far as the total number of students go. Now, understanding that and knowing that, it means that throwing my money at hunting down female prospects isn't the best use of my money, because they're not typically as receptive to this kind of advertising and this kind of business model. So it's better to go after the people that you know are going to convert, right? So fair enough. So we go for a male aged 18 to 44 just to start out. Now sometimes I'll even throw on, because Facebook allows this, people who have a conservative leaning, or even a libertarian leaning, or a centrist leaning when it comes to politics. I seldom ever go for left-based political identities when I'm doing ads for the internet marketing community. Now again, that's just because I look at who my current students are and who my past students are, and the primary makeup of those people and the people that resonate with my message happen to be somewhere from the center to the right. And very few happen to be left-wing. Reason being, left-wing typically doesn't sympathize with business owners. They believe certain things like we should distribute our wealth, redistribute our wealth, and everybody should get their fair share, and all sorts of other horse shit that tanks businesses. So understanding that, it's a good idea to target the people who are pro-business, who know basic concepts of what makes a business work and what makes a business fail. And they step aside from the fantasies that the left likes to employ and step into a more realistic viewpoint of business. So that's why I target that. But now, above and beyond those things, those are just the basic demographics of my market when I'm targeting ads for internet marketing. One of the other things that I actually do is I go in and I look for internet marketing and business opportunity, and even multi-level marketing, network marketing, related leads and prospects, we'll say, target demographics and avatars. And I will add things like digital marketing as interests, email marketing, influencer marketing, online advertising, different things along those lines. Now there's all sorts of different targets that you can go after of, say, Aweber and MailChimp and Infusionsoft and different things along those lines, because those people are using email marketing software. So it stands to reason that they do email marketing. So there are thousands of ways that you can target based on interests, right? But those are just a few of the ways. And what I will do is I'll stockpile a bunch of those. And if I'm looking to really narrow it down, so say I have a product that's specifically just for email marketers, I'll use my basic demographics, and then I'll use email marketing as an interest target, but then say that it's a product, right, that is teaching them how to use Aweber. Well, then I would do an and modifier that is Aweber, right? Because they already have an interest in Aweber, but I would also create another campaign that's all of Aweber's competition. And I would use those as my target, and now of course my message would be slightly different for the people that like Aweber. I would be talking about all those pros, and here's how to amplify your results with Aweber, whereas with the people who are on competitors, I would say, well, here's why you should be using Aweber. And you see the message changes when your targeting changes, and that's what a lot of people screw up, is they don't actually change up their copy, and so the message isn't different, but it's like bouncing a message off of a brick wall, because the message doesn't fit the market, and your market, or your message to market match, has to be on point, or you're really throwing money away. So that's, in a nutshell, how I end up targeting when it's based on interests. Now, some other modifiers that you can do in Facebook that make things really interesting, and recently they actually took away a lot of these parameters, but there's still ways to play with it, so I encourage you to go around and look in the back office at the behaviors. But there are certain things like income ranges, there are net worth, there are things like people who are Facebook page managers. So there's all sorts of other ideas that can expand your total market and who you can go looking for. But again, remember that your copy has to match who it is that you're targeting. And so this brings us to something that I discussed a long time ago on a webinar with Ben Settle. And it's something that I created that I call water cooler rapport. So what you can do is use an and modifier in your marketing. So say that you were targeting email marketers, right? And you say, I would also like to target email marketers, and so that means someone that is an email marketing interest, but they also like this other thing. So I would say Family Guy, for instance, right? Now, in that, my copy could speak about or speak in the same tone with the same comic references and the same sort of comedy that Family Guy uses. And in doing that, in becoming something that they're already familiar with and talking in that way, you know that they already like that, right? And so you gain this instant rapport. It's like if you were at work and you go up to the water cooler, this is why I got this name, and you overhear people talking about last night's football game with the Seattle Seahawks, for example, right? And you come in and you say, yeah, I love the Cardinals or the 49ers or the Rams, right? Which are all other NFC West teams, for those of you that don't know, which is their conference. And you started talking pro and excited about them. Everybody at the water cooler would look at you and say, shut the hell up. We're Seahawks fans. And so instead of having rapport, you would instantly have people that have resistance. And one of the big things that you want to do with sales and advertising is to drop people's resistance, right? To make them feel comfortable with you, like they have something in common with you so that they listen to you. And so the basic premise of water cooler rapport is that you'd walk up to this water cooler and you'd listen to what they were talking about. And they were talking about they're fans of the Seattle Seahawks. So you'd say, man, isn't Russell Wilson the greatest? That quarterback is amazing. And instantly, you'd have rapport. They'd say, oh man, I love Russell. He's great. Did you see that throw that he did last night, etc. And instantly, you're into a conversation, even if you don't know those people. Right? And now, with that conversation, you can segue into all sorts of other topics, just like you do naturally. And this is a way that people that even aren't good at advertising, that have never advertised before, have an opportunity to take something that people know and segue it into a conversation about your business. And the more that you practice this, the better you'll become. But the idea is you start with something that you know your audience is interested in. But see, we targeted internet or email marketers who also like Family Guy in this instance, or the Seahawks like we were just talking about, right? So we start with that Family Guy or Seahawks modifier, right? Because it's an instant, easy, low resistance conversation that you can start with and that you can do pattern interrupts with. Like if you had a picture of, say Russell Wilson or of Family Guy characters or even Family Guy style drawings of yourself in some sort of situation, all of a sudden you break their pattern, you interrupt their pattern, their regularly scheduled programming, if you will. And you get their attention very, very quickly, right? So all of that sort of thing helps when you understand that when you can target like that and you can cater your message and your imaging like that, that you can get into the conversation that your prospects are already having, right? And that makes a world of difference. From there, you segue into what you are offering them, but it's much more friendly, right? And it is all of a sudden, you have this friendship, this camaraderie, this trust barrier, which is one of the common problems that people say. I don't know how to get people to know, like, and trust me. Well, the easiest way to do that is to listen, right? And that's what targeting is, because these people have expressed that they have an interest in a certain thing, right? And so because you've listened, you now know what to talk about to engage them, to perk up their ears, to make them happy. So it's that simple. But now another interest, or not even interest, but another way to target that is very common, and this is actually kind of the cheat code for Facebook advertising, is custom audiences. So say you've been established and you have an email list or you have a customer list, which is even better. We'll get to that in a little while. But say you have this list of people with their email addresses. Well, you can import that into Facebook's advertising manager, and you can sorry, my dog is at the door and she's being very noisy. You can import this list of emails into Facebook Ads Manager. And that list will now be a custom audience for every one of those email addresses that they can match up to a user on Facebook, right? You can essentially target those people using Facebook ads. So now you can sell other products to customers who have purchased, say, product 1, and you want to sell them product 2 and 3 and 4, you can using Facebook ads and custom audiences. But above and beyond custom audiences, one other thing that you can do with custom audiences is use them as a negative targeting audience, right? So say you're trying to build a list like we were talking about at the beginning of this video here, this live stream. If you're trying to generate leads, the last thing you want to do is be wasting advertising spend, your dollars, on people that are already on your list. It doesn't make sense. So if you use them as a negative target, right, now you know you're not spending money on advertising to people who are already on your list. So that's just one quick little hack. And I tend to do that with everybody. Like if I'm selling a product through Facebook, I'll take my current product list, or my current product customer list for that specific product, and I'll use that as a negative target because I'm not trying to sell the same product to somebody who's already bought it, etc. You get the point of how that can be used. But another way that you can use custom audiences is you can create what's called a lookalike audience, right? And in that lookalike audience, essentially what it is you take your list, your custom audience of all of those emails, and Facebook will take a look at those, and using machine learning, it will look at the common demographics and interests and behaviors and whatnot of those users that you upload, and it will go and try to find you a matching list that is comparable to your list of people. And now the more people that you have on the list, your custom audience list, the more accurate Facebook can get, because the larger the sample size, the more accurate it can get, because it can find common emerging trends amongst all of those people, right? So the more data you give them, the better it can do for you in return. But you take these custom audiences and you create lookalike audiences. But one of my favorite new features in Facebook advertising, and this to me is genuinely a game changer, is with Facebook custom audiences, you can now upload a new column, a new variable to your ads, and that is their LTV, their lifetime value. So say you have customer A, right? You've got their email address, and you've got, say, their name, their phone number, all that, whatever. You can upload all of that stuff. But in this lifetime value column, you add the amount of money that that customer has spent with you to date, right? So you give an exact dollar amount of how much that customer has been worth to you at that point. And now what that does is, with all of the other customers and all of their lifetime values, it takes those and it sorts them into a descending order. So it takes your most valuable customers, the ones who have spent the most money with you, and places them at the top of a list of prioritizing your lookalike audience. So say you have a customer that's worth $20,000 and you have them ranging all the way down to customers who've only spent $100 with you. All right? What Facebook does, its algorithms will take those customers and it will weigh them. And it'll say, listen, I want you to find me lookalike audience members who look like this list, but I want you to prioritize that list. And I want you to try to find me as many of these customers that have made me $20,000 as possible. And once you've run out of those, move to the next one, say 15,000, 10,000, all the way down to that $100 customer or the $10 customer or whatever it is that you have. And it does this in descending order, and it fills up your lookalike audience, right, based on these value, these dollar level metrics. And so what it ends up doing is creating a prioritized list of finding people who are just like your most valuable customers, all the way down to your least yet still valuable customers, right? And so it just creates a much better quality of list. But now, one common mistake that I see a lot of people do is when they create these lookalike audiences, right? They just leave it at that, and they just advertise to that lookalike audience blindly and blatantly, thinking that Facebook has solved all of their problems and they never have to do anything again. They can be as lazy as possible. I'm here to tell you that that's not the best plan. That's not the best course of action. See, what I like to do with a lookalike audience is, number one, I'll take my exclude list, which is my custom audience of those customers, and I'll put that on there. So I'll say, don't advertise to these people, saving me that little bit of money, right? But above and beyond that, I will add in those demographics that we talked about earlier. The 18 to 44-year-old, the male, sometimes a conservative I'll be looking for. And then I'll also add in internet marketing related interests, right? Or income variables, or net worth variables, or all of those different variables that we've talked about, right? Because I want them to be as specific as possible. And unfortunately, when Facebook's creating this lookalike audience that's 2.1 million customers or prospects deep, they're not all going to be the ideal target, the ideal avatar for you. But when you focus that down, right, and you've let the machine learning work for you and find you these perfect avatars, and then you add in those parameters of the demographics and the interests and the behaviors, it narrows that down list further and whittles it down into a hyper specific, hyper laser targeted, I fucking hate that term, but anyway, it creates this hyper focused list of people for you to advertise. And so your advertising success rates go through the roof. Your cost per lead that we were talking about earlier goes down. And so your cost per acquisition, your cost per lead is super low. But you know that these people are hyper targeted because they're based on people who have already paid you money or who are already on your list, right, etc. But they're also targeted with those interests and those demographic parameters that you know give you a higher chance of success in converting those leads into paying customers. So that's what I do to really do all of my targeting these days, and to really make things just amazing, right? The results are tremendous. And that's what you can do as well. So that's the abrasive targeting method these days, and those are the abrasive KPIs that matter to me as well. Now, as well, say you're trying to target people to sell a product instead of just list building. The KPIs that you're going to want to look for in that situation are obviously your cost per sale, your cost per acquisition, right? I mean, you still have to monitor your click-through rates and cost per clicks and all of those sorts of things, but they're not really primary KPIs to me. Again, you want to have the lowest possible cost per acquisition or cost per sale that you can possibly have, because that gives you the largest margin, and that's profitability, and that's essentially what you want. So that's what you're looking for. And if you're spending money and you're not getting people clicking through to your website, right? They're not engaging with your ad, they're not clicking on it, they're not going to check out what you have for sale, your ad isn't doing so well. So that's why those KPIs do matter somewhat, right? But it's assuming that you've got all of that taken care of and you've got a decent amount of people who see your ad and click through to your ad. The only thing that matters is your cost per acquisition, your cost per sale. Just like before, your cost per lead is what mattered. And that's it. At the end of the day, marketing is a lot more simple than a lot of these gurus are pretending that it is. And when you understand that and you act confidently on the knowledge that I've given you here and the knowledge that you can learn in my masterclass, which I'll leave a link for you in the comments, because it is essentially everything that I know. See, a couple years ago, I was in a terrible car accident, and I was told by a doctor, "You're going to die, dude." Quote. We had a funny relationship. Funny. Well, because I thought I was dying, I figured I needed to impart this wisdom to my friends, and specifically to my wife, who would have to support herself if something were to happen to me. And in that undertaking, I created what I called the Abrasive Advertising Masterclass, which teaches you to do everything that I do, from advertising to email list marketing to talking to, engaging with, and selling to your social media following as well. It's everything you need to know, from your positioning and all of the fundamentals and all of the principles of marketing and advertising and branding and business, right down to the nitty-gritty, including a here's how to do everything in step-by-step form, right? It also comes with a bunch of videos where I let you look over the shoulder as I consult with a bunch of different businesses and solve all of their various problems that they have in their business. And so far, I haven't had a single complaint. And remember, this product isn't for everyone because it sells at $5,000, but it's well worth the money. See, nobody's ever complained about this product, and everybody absolutely loves it. Why? Why do they love it? Because it works, because it gets results for my customers. That's it at the end of the day. If you want to make sales, if you want to make more sales, if you want to do better online, if you want to have a social media following or an email list or both like I have that give you money for products, for services, etc., that's what the masterclass is for. It's that simple. Check out the sales page, but that's it. That's all I've got for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're just tuning in for the first time, make sure you like my page, The Abrasive Entrepreneur, and if you get the chance, look me up. Right now, my profile name is actually Zark Muckerberg on Facebook. I did that as a joke, and unfortunately, I'm in this 60-day period where they won't allow you to change your name back. So for now, it's Zark Muckerberg, but later on, in about 30 days from now, I'll be back to Shane Hunter. But for now, like my page, The Abrasive Entrepreneur. I will likely be retargeting you if you've watched more than 50% of this video. So I will see you in further ads and in further content, and hopefully in my emails, and hopefully just on Facebook and on social media in general. If you'd like to follow me on Twitter, my name is Shane_Hunter_X, right? And if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's abrasive.entrepreneur. So abrasive.entrepreneur. That's it. That's all. Thank you so much for watching. I am the Abrasive Entrepreneur. Have yourself an abrasively wonderful day. Go be profitable, my friends, because you can, you deserve it. Live life by design on your terms. Peace.